What's going on, everybody? You found Bottom Tier Collector, and I'm your host, the Bearded One. As always, thank you for liking, subscribing, and commenting on my content. Uh, First off, you already know what I'm about to talk about by the description of the video. So I'll just go ahead and say I've paid tribute to Crisis on Infinite Earths on my Instagram account. So if you'd like to check out my social media, I do have Instagram. It is the Bearded One. I think there's an 89 at the end. If not, just look for my logo. It'll be like some Ray-Ban sunglasses with a hot plant beard, and that'll be me. And I've had fun with it today. I just finished Crisis on Infinite Earths. I didn't read my trade. I'm actually about to turn this trade in for some store credit, and here in the future, I'm either going to buy the huge box set they have for this, or I'm just going to get the hardcover of just the 12 main issues. I'm going to give an overview, a very, 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 very abbreviated overview of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I hope I do it justice. This is considered by many the greatest story of all time. And having finally finished it, having finally put all the pieces together, I don't agree that it's the greatest story of all time, but I agree that it is one of the greatest stories of all time. I don't care if you're just a Marvel fan. I don't care if you just read indie books. I think every single comic book fan should read Crisis on Infinite Earths. It goes up there with those timeless classic DC stories like Kingdom Come. I just think this is, would you say watershed? I'm not sure, but this is definitely a very impactful story in comics, and I think this story kind of changes comics from the Bronze Age to the Copper Age. This felt grand. It felt huge, and it was trying to be huge. That's one thing that I appreciate now that I've finished the story, but as I was reading it, I couldn't appreciate it at the time. Now, for context, I'm a Lobo fan. I'm an Etrigan fan. Sinestro, Green Lantern. They don't have big roles in this event. In fact, at the time of Crisis on Infinite Earths, Lobo had not been remade. Lobo was still a throwaway character in Omega Man 3, in the Omega Man. Etrigan had a very minor role. He helped the sorcerers out at the end of the story. I thought, but yeah, so just for context, those are my favorite characters, and bringing that up to say, I didn't need Lobo or Etrigan or Spawn or Wolverine. I didn't need my characters in this story for it to be good. Marv Wolfman probably got carried away. I don't think DC understood what they had in their hands at the time, and I think they let Marv Wolfman and George Perez just have the ability to do whatever they want. And I really honestly think that helps. It hurts the book, hurts the event, and yet helps the event. Just think of it as a 1,000-piece puzzle. You get excited to start the 1,000-piece puzzle or the 10,000-piece puzzle. I don't know how big puzzles can get, but at least a 1,000-piece puzzle, you get real excited to start the puzzle, and then you're midway into a puzzle and it's starting to become kind of a grind. But then when you finish the puzzle, there's this immense sense of satisfaction. And that's kind of the analogy that I think works best with Crisis on Infinite Earths, because it really is, it's such a complex puzzle. And not only did I read the main 12 issues, I've read all the tie-ins except for 2. I'll direct you guys at the end to the website I used, but I curated the master list of Crisis on Infinite Earths and read all but 2 of the tie-ins. And I haven't read the 2 tie-ins yet because I think they're prologue issues after issue 12, or they are side stories about what happens in issue 12. I don't know yet. I haven't been able to read those stories yet. But yeah, it's like every issue just about fits into this condensed puzzle. Now there's a lot of, if you listen to old collectors talk about Crisis on Infinite Earths, especially Generation X collectors, people in their 40s, early 50s, there's a lot of Red Skies jokes. And I always wondered, what are these Red Skies jokes? You know, so many people hold Crisis on Infinite Earths in such high regard. Why do people tease it for having these Red Skies jokes? Well, over the course of the story, all that's happening in space, from the Anti-Monitor and his attacks and his plot, creates this horrible weather in space surrounding the planet Earth and the other Earths in jeopardy, in danger of being destroyed by the Anti-Monitor. And it creates in the skies, you know, when you're on Earth, you see the terrible weather as just a huge red sky, fiery sky. And there's a lot of tie-ins where I believe I've heard some of the writers were irritated they had to dedicate an issue or a mini arc to Crisis on Infinite Earths, because this was the first real event of its kind. I'm sure there were crossovers before. I mean, they used to do Crisis on multiple Earths. So the crossover thing isn't new, but like this grand epic scale event is kind of the first of its kind. And so I don't think a lot of the writers and creative teams that weren't on the main series fully appreciated it. And so I think they would do their own stories that had nothing to do with Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they just tied it into the event by having Red Skies. The Batman, all the Batman and Detective Comics and the Vigilante tie-in, those books specifically do not tie in at all. I think the All-Star Squadron, the Infinity Inc., those 2 books at the time that were on shelves tied in perfectly. They were direct tie-ins. There's a Dr. Fate issue towards the end that ties in really well. And it really gave me a broader scope of the event. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it was a grind. Like I said earlier, that puzzle, that 1,000-piece puzzle, felt like a grind. You know, I got through the first 20 or so issues, and then after like 20 issues, I started putting down and picking up the book as I was interested in it, as I was in the mood for it. And I think the grind kind of hurts the series a little bit and makes it hard. Now, if you're just reading the 12 main issues, I don't think there's as much of a grind. But keep in mind, there's so much story in each issue. And I was reading the tie-ins on top of these very dense issues. And, you know, getting into the 30s and even into the 40s, it just took me so long to find the headspace and get in an area where I'm not distracted and I can just immerse myself in Crisis, because this is a story, even if you're just reading the 12 issue series, none of the tie-ins, you really want to immerse yourself into this universe, and you really want to try and retain a lot, because it's so, again, I use this word a lot, it's just so dense. It's very meat and potato story. And it took me multiple years. I think I started this reading project before COVID. And after COVID, my priority, I kind of went on hiatus for a little bit from comics, like almost completely. I just got a little burned out after Convergence, kind of the tail end of Rebirth heading into DCU and the Young Animal movement. I almost completely got out of comics and came back. You know, this was the first big reading project I set for myself, and it just fell behind because, again, just so much to read. And a lot of that's my fault. 60 issues. I don't care if you've got, you know, an omnibus or whatever. 60 issues is a lot, and I do wish I'd read it a lot sooner, a lot quicker. But you know, priorities. You know, where are you going to put your priorities? And Crisis didn't always get the priority when I was reading comics. I really came out of this story with an appreciation for a lot of characters. I became a big fan of Dawnstar from Legion of Superheroes. I really liked her character. Dr. Light, really liked her character. There were some tie-ins with Dr. Midnight. Really liked that. Really liked his character. His successor, there's a female that takes over the mantle of Dr. Midnight. I liked that arc. It didn't directly tie into Crisis, but I still enjoyed reading it. Who else? Sandman. I love Sandman. I have the Sandman omnibus. I like the Wesley Dodds Sandman, but my first introduction to the orange and purple jumpsuit Sandman, who I'm not sure is Wesley Dodds or somebody else, he had a short little arc, not necessarily a direct tie-in, but he had a short little arc in one of the Infinity Inc. or All-Star Squadron issues. And again, that just really turned me on to Sandman even more. So I liked that version of Sandman. I got introduced to Psycho Pirate, one of the most complex characters in the entire series. Psycho Pirate goes from helping the good guys to kind of thinking he doesn't really want to use his powers to help the good guys, and so it kind of twists his mind a little bit, and the Anti-Monitor takes advantage of that, his emotional state, and he preys on his greed and gets Psycho Pirate to team up with the Anti-Monitor. And then at the very end, not to spoil too much, but then at the very end, Psycho Pirate loses his mind. He's just mentally broken from the entire event. But ironically, Psycho Pirate's just about the only character that remembers it all. So that was some very good irony, really good writing there. I really like that. The character deaths. This character, Pariah. At first I thought he was annoying. Pariah is cursed because Pariah opened the door to the antimatter universe, which invited the Anti-Monitor into the positive matter universe or multiverse. I can't remember if it's a multiverse or not. And that's what starts this whole chain of events of the antimatter energy, like consuming all these universes in the positive matter multiverse. And Pariah is cursed because he opened that door. He's got to witness all of these Earths and all of these planets dying. And it's a very painful, very tragic character. And I really could empathize and sympathize with Pariah. I didn't care for Lex Luthor's son, Alex Luthor III, from I don't know what Earth, but one of the Earths in the multiverse. I didn't care for him. I didn't like the red Jufro, if you will forgive the derogatory term, but the red, curly, thick hair. I just didn't like the character design. I didn't like the idea of him being just infinitely more powerful than even like the Spectre. I did like Harbinger, and I liked Monitor, not Anti-Monitor, but Monitor. I liked their dynamic, how she was supposed to help him, and then it was almost like a religious prophecy where she betrays the Monitor and then loses her power somehow, and then she ends up finding a way to bring all the heroes together again and help lead the charge against the Anti-Monitor at the end. You just got the full story. You got the full lifespan of the character. I feel like there's just so much depth and character development to Harbinger. I really got a lot of exposure to her and liked it. Gosh, there's so much to say. I'm just trying to do a brief overview. For me, I liked issue 1, but then issues 2, 3, 4, and 5 really felt kind of filler. It was kind of... You're dealing with alternate realities, so you're kind of seeing things repeated, but from a different angle, and it just feels monotonous at times. Redundant would be a more accurate word. And so I had a problem with that in the middle of the issues, but issue 7 is where it started to pick up. Issue 7, we all know, is the infamous death of Supergirl issue. And surprisingly enough, I will admit it here, her death did not impact me that much. I don't know if it's because I'm not really a big fan of Superman at all, or Superman's family. I don't know what the reason is behind me not getting that emotion, behind that event not getting that kind of emotional response out of me. For just some reason, I didn't connect with Supergirl dying. I connected more with Superman's grief than Supergirl's death. So when Superman was grieving, I felt that. But because, seeing Supergirl die did not spark an emotional response for whatever reason. I don't know. The writing was good, though. It has nothing to do with the writing or the art or whatever. Flash's death in the next issue, that really hit me. The Anti-Monitor created this antimatter cannon, and Barry Allen's captured at this point by Psycho Pirate. And Barry Allen gets his powers back somehow, defeats Psycho Pirate into submission, and spins. He starts running around the antimatter cannon. Somehow him running so fast that it vibrates time and all that stuff you get with the Flash dismantled the cannon. But in doing so, the Flash essentially died. Now, I'm of the thought that he's not dead. He's stuck in the Speed Force, or whatever Mark Waid called it when Mark Waid invented the Speed Force. But essentially, for the sake of argument, he did die. And they drove that home in the last issue when Wally looks over, at Psycho Pirate after the Anti-Monitor is presumed dead. I don't think he's dead at this point, but they assume they've beaten Anti-Monitor, and Wally West looks over at Psycho Pirate, and Psycho Pirate's begging Barry Allen to save him. And he's got tears in his eyes, and it's just a costume. It's like a hollowed out costume of the Flash, and that just... Not only did issue 8 really impact me and Barry Allen's death, but that scene, again, all these months, maybe even years later, I don't remember how long ago I've read issue 8, but it brought back those emotions. That Barry Allen death, oh my gosh. And then the Wonder Woman death kind of impacted me. I read that today. I finished issue 12 today. And I thought her epilogue was so poetic. Marv Wolfman did Golden Age Wonder Woman such a beautiful ending. Like, gave her such a beautiful ending. I almost don't even want Golden Age Wonder Woman to come back in these Justice Society of America reboots. You just can't bring a character back from such a gracious ending. So you assume she dies. She takes a direct blast from Anti-Monitor. It's like his death knell move. I'm going to kill you, human, for defeating me. I can't defeat the Earth, but I'll defeat you. And all of his power blast into Golden Age Wonder Woman. And the epilogue is that she didn't die. She got reverted back into time, into her clay. Like she went back into time before she was created. And then her clay was spread out all across the earth, I think. And then her spirit, I guess, because essentially she died. Even though Marv Wolfman said she didn't die, it's kind of confusing. You'll just have to read it for yourself. Her soul, her spirit, whatever you want to call it, goes to Mount Olympus to become a god and live with the gods on Mount Olympus. It's such a poetic ending for Golden Age Wonder Woman. A great send-off for her. And I really liked the sacrifice Golden Age Superman makes of staying behind. At the very end, Alex Luthor III opens a portal to the Earth, and all the heroes that save the day are going to come out, and Superman, Anti-Monitor, it gets kind of Dragon Ball Z-ish, but Anti-Monitor is like, I'm not dead yet, I'm going to defeat you, and Golden Age Superman gets everybody out, except for Superboy. Superboy, I think it's Golden Age Superboy, excuse me, comes back into the portal, and they fight Anti-Monitor, and I thought that was such a great sacrifice. I thought that was another poetic ending for Superman, and the way Golden Age... Oh, and he defeats Anti-Monitor, well, I don't want to spoil too much, but I thought that was a very poetic... What happens to Golden Age Superman, I want you guys to read it. I'm not going to say any more. It's very poetic and beautiful and really added to the end of this story. And issue 12 was the strongest issue for me. I really think it was. And I know it's easy to say the last issue was the best issue, but it really was. And it made the entire grind of Crisis on Infinite Earths and the stuff I didn't understand, like they pulled from scenes from Sergeant Rock and World War II, and they pulled stuff from Commandy, the Last Neanderthal, or whatever that Jack Kirby creation is, and they pulled from Legion. They're trying to show that this event is going across all timelines and universes. And there was just so much. And then, you had several meetings of all the superheroes, which I think was just a gratuitous plot device so George Perez could have the excuse to draw all those characters into pages, because apparently George Perez loves to cram as many characters into a drawing as he possibly can. And so I think a lot of those meeting scenes where a lot of the superheroes are like, why are we here? And then Alex Luthor and Harbinger have to tell them what's going on. I don't think they needed as many of these meetings. I really don't. It was a lot of filler. Yeah, I think I've covered just about everything I want to cover. Again, Crisis on Infinite Earths, one of the greatest stories of all time. I would recommend this to anybody. You don't have to have your favorite character in here to enjoy this story. I hope I did service to the story. Rest in peace, George Perez. I'll never get to meet George Perez and thank him. I had the opportunity years and years ago. He came to, I think I was at 2 cons George Perez was at, but I didn't have any books that I wanted to get signed by George Perez when I had the opportunity those 2 times. And I regret it now. I wish I had gotten to see the man. I have met Marv Wolfman in person. In fact, Marv Wolfman was the editor for Omega Men 3, and he signed my Omega Men 3. Very gracious human being. I wish I had finished this when I met Marv Wolfman so I could thank Marv Wolfman for such an amazing story. There's also, I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into the story because I don't remember it all, and I think I'm just going to put the overview to bed here. Is this the greatest story of all time? For me, and what I look for in a comic book, and what I enjoy, and what gives me the most pleasure out of the hobby, no, this is not the greatest story of all time. However, I think this is the greatest event of all time. And I'm a huge death metal fan. I love death metal that came out in 2020. The concept was me, the story was me. I got plenty of the main man in death metal, but I have to honestly, I have to be transparent and be honest with myself and be honest with you guys who are coming to this overview for an honest opinion. I think this is the greatest event that's ever been written. And I don't know if it'll ever be passed. But it's not the perfect story. No story, well, technically, I guess, in your opinion, there could be a perfect story. In my opinion, there is a perfect story. It happens to be a death metal side tie-in. But this comes close to perfection. And if you haven't read Crisis on Infinite Earths, I would strongly encourage you, pick up the trade, get a subscription to DC Universe. That's how I read most of these tie-ins, was digitally on my DC Universe Infinite app. See if you can track down the issues. They're getting pricier. You know, George Perez has passed away, and it's getting harder to find these. There's a couple key issues in there: Death of Barry Allen, Death of Supergirl, second appearance of John Constantine, first appearance of Anti-Monitor. There's some keys in there, so I mean, you're going to have to get on the train now, probably, if you want to get these 12 issues in decent condition at a still reasonable price. But that'll do me for now, guys. Before I go, I do want to give a shout out to Fanboy Prime. We've been conversating on Instagram a lot lately, and you actually encouraged me to make this video today. I was not planning on doing an overview for Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's just so much. This is so dense of a story, and I don't feel like I could do a page-for-page dissection. But I do want to thank you, Fanboy Prime, for encouraging me to make that video and putting that fire in me to record my thoughts on the video. And who knows, maybe in the future when I get my desktop situation set up and I can get online and do some live streams with you guys. I do plan on doing live streams in the future. Maybe I'll pull this out and I'll get on a live stream and we'll just geek out. We'll spend a couple hours talking, you know, page for page, Crisis on Infinite Earths. That'd be fun. Let me know in the comments what you think of Crisis on Infinite Earths, what you don't like about it. Do you think it's total garbage? Do you think it's really good? And let me know if you'd like to see a live stream, a more in-depth conversation on what I think is the greatest event of all time.